Good evening. You're watching The Right Stand with me, Poonam Burde. Ladakh, known for its scenic beauty and calm demeanour, turned into a battleground yesterday. Protests, arson and stone pelting marred a demand for statehood and inclusion of Ladakh in the 6th schedule of the Constitution. The situation escalated when some youth resorted to violence at the BJP headquarters and the Hill Council office. There were police and paramilitary forces that had been deployed in strength because of the protests already, but they had to fire tear gas shells to bring the situation under control. It ultimately led to the death of 4 people. Now, the centre has laid the blame on the door of the activist Sonam Wangchuk, who was leading a hunger strike but called it off soon after this protest turned violent. So who exactly was responsible? There was a blame that was being laid at the door of a Congress councillor for his provocative statements as well. But here's the twist in the tale. Sonam Wangchuk's motives are now under the scanner. The centre has hinted at a toolkit that seems to be at play to disturb the progress that has been made via dialogue over this statehood demand. There have been several engagements that have been undertaken by the central government, by the Home Ministry, with stakeholders in Ladakh over these demands that they have been making for months now. Cracking the whip, the Ministry of Home Affairs has now cancelled Sonam Wangchuk's NGO's FCRA license, which means that he cannot receive funds from outside the country anymore. Here's why that has happened. There were local donations that were received in his FCRA account as an allegation that was under investigation, that there were foreign remittances that were received in these particular bank accounts before they could apply for this FCRA registration. False declaration of zero foreign income that was shown for the financial year of 2020 to 2021 and then the following year after that as well. The allegation that the Home Ministry was also looking answers for was that there was a private firm that was formed to absorb this excess NGO fund without that firm doing actual real work, and that there was alleged money laundering that was being investigated as well. Now, these foreign funds were received in personal or joint accounts that were not meant for the NGO's work. The allegation is also that Sonam Wangchuk's NGO and Sonam Wangchuk himself had crores of money transferred from abroad to unknown entities. Where did this money come from? Where did it go? All of which the MHA sought answers to. They found that unsatisfactory, which is why his NGO's FCRA license has now been cancelled.
हम जानते हैं पिछले दिनों से जो एक मांगों को लेकर के बात चल रही है, केंद्र सरकार द्वारा इसकी बात मानी गई और ये कहा गया कि बातचीत को दोबारा से शुरुआत की जाएगी, लेकिन उसके बावजूद वहाँ पर आकर के एक ग्रुप आता है, धरने में जाता है, धरने के बाद निकलता है और आकर के जगह जगह पर आग लग जाती है, पत्थरबाजी होती है। ये लद्दाख की परंपरा नहीं है। मुझे आशा ही नहीं, पूर्ण विश्वास है कि जो लोग इसके पीछे हैं उनकी जांच तो की ही जाएगी, लेकिन वो इस लद्दाख के शांति व्यवस्था को खराब करने के लिए आए हैं, यहाँ का माहौल खराब करने के लिए आए। इस प्रकार के लोगों को बर्दाश्त नहीं किया जा सकता। मैं शांति व्यवस्था की दोबारा से अपील करता हूं।
ये है कांग्रेस के काउंसलर स्टानजिंग सेपांग। ये अपर लेह वार्ड से काउंसलर हैं, ये मेन इंस्टिगेटर हैं। अब आप देख सकते हैं कि वही काउंसलर स्टानजिंग सेपांग राहुल गांधी जी के साथ है। यह जो तस्वीर है ये राहुल गांधी है। एक बात आप याद रखिए, कांग्रेस पार्टी हैज नेफेरियस डिजाइन्स। कांग्रेस पार्टी का जो षड्यंत्र है, किस प्रकार से भारत तेरे टुकड़े होंगे इंशा अल्लाह, यही कांग्रेस पार्टी का मुख्य लाइन है। आज पूरे विश्व में हम एक ब्राइट स्पॉट हैं। बड़े से बड़ा लीडर विश्व का आज भारत का लोहा मानता है। अगर देश को तोड़ने की कोशिश करोगे तो देश जवाब भी देना जानता है, जनता जवाब भी दे।
प्रधानमंत्री जी, आप पूरी तरह सफल हो रहे हैं। देश में पूरब में तो आग लगी थी, मणिपुर में जो शांत लद्दाख था वहां भी आग लग गई। मैं सबसे पहली अपील करता हूं कि लद्दाख के लोगों से वहां अमन हो, चैन हो, शांति हो, पर ये घटिया आदतों से बाज आए भाजपा। अपनी असफलता नहीं बताएंगे कि केंद्र की सरकार है आपकी।
CNN News 18, in fact, now has details of why this FCRA license has been cancelled. Sonam Wangchuk's NGO. These are the reasons. There, of course, are several donations, several remittances that are under the scanner. But here's what we found, that 3.5 lakh rupees were received as foreign donation in cash. The MHA sought answers on that. The answers that the NGO provided were proven to be unsatisfactory. Another donation that is under the scanner is of another 3.5 lakh rupees, which violates this section 17 of the FCRA Act. There are local deposits that have been made into this account as well. They're not foreign remittances, they are local donations, but they have been made into this particular account, which is violative of section 17, is what we're given to understand. A little less than 5 lakh rupees were received from foreign donors, which violates section 12 of the FCRA, and that's under the scanner now as well. This foreign donation was allegedly misused for study of sovereignty. What that exactly means, that's something that the MHA had sought answers to. Those answers were sought to be unsatisfactory as well, which is why the FCRA license has now been cancelled. 79,200 rupees was received as foreign donation, but it was not credited to the FCRA account, but in fact was done to a personal account. Why was that done? That's another reason, that's another question that the MHA had to ask. Anshul, my colleague, now joins us, getting us more details. Anshul, several of these donations, several of these transactions have been noted by the MHA. If you could take our viewers through the sequence of events of when this notice, show cause notice that was initially given to the NGO, when the answers came out, and now finally the license being suspended today.
Well, this entire investigation has been carried out by the Ministry of Home Affairs over the last 1 year, year and a half, and there were several instances that have been found by the MHA which are not according to the FCRA laws, which means that the manner in which Sonam Wangchuk was operating his entire NGO and was taking foreign fundings, this was not according to the FCRA laws that has been mandated over here in our country. Now, Sonam, there are instances, as you just mentioned and told our viewers, that there are several instances that have now been mentioned from the side of the MHA, that these instances actually fall under the laws, do not fall under the FCRA laws of our country, and hence the FCRA license of Sonam Wangchuk NGO has been cancelled. Now, what does this essentially means? This means that there could be no foreign funding that could be given to Sonam Wangchuk in any way or any manner legally. Apart from this, the troubles for Sonam Wangchuk is likely to increase over the next few days, as in all likelihood we are expecting that the Central Bureau of Investigation would also register an FIR into this entire matter, because remember, over the last month and a half, there has been this preliminary inquiry that has been launched from the side of the Central Bureau of Investigation to look into these FCRA violations. Now, since the MHA has found these violations, this would be shared with the Central Bureau of Investigation, which would actually provoke them, or which would actually advise them to register a formal FIR into this entire matter and then carry on with the investigation. Now, remember, another very important and pertinent thing to note is that FCRA is a schedule offence, which means that the Enforcement Directorate could also come into the picture, and they could also register a case against Sonam Wangchuk as well. So definitely the agencies seems to be huddling up at this point in time, and over the next few days we can expect some serious action that could be taken against Sonam Wangchuk. He could actually be summoned by both CBI and eventually by the Enforcement Directorate as well to come in and record his statements. But the manner in which these violations have come to the fore, this clearly states a story that everything was not being done according to the laws as mandated by the country. When the law says that you cannot return money to any foreign donor, how did 19,000 rupees was returned to some foreign donor? The law clearly states that you cannot take foreign funding to go ahead and carry out any sort of research or searches or any sort of studies in India challenging the sovereignty of India. Why was money being taken for a study that was being done in our country? Who was constantly funding Sonam Wangchuk? All these questions needs to be answered, and definitely it seems like that trouble for Sonam Wangchuk over the next few months is definitely going to increase by multiple folds.
And the sovereignty of the country, that's something that is being looked at very closely because there are several reasons why FCRA licenses can be cancelled off a particular organization if they're violative of any of these norms, Anshul, if there are allegations of money laundering. But one of the reasons why an FCRA license can also be cancelled is if that particular organization is indulging in anti-national activity. And that's something that in this particular case has been pointed out, isn't it?
Well, definitely the MHA in its notification of cancelling this entire FCRA license of Sonam Wangchuk's NGO has very clearly stated that an amount was taken from a Swedish company to carry out a research out here in India, basically carrying out a study on the sovereignty of our country and how things could eventually get better and how we could develop. But the law clearly mandates that if you are doing any sort of a research or anything regarding the sovereignty of the country or something that is related to the security and the image of the country, you cannot take foreign funding in such cases. But Sonam Wangchuk kept these bylaws aside and made sure that he took those fundings and eventually gave it to his students' organizations to actually go ahead and carry out this entire study as well, which now the MHA feels that is not only according to the laws but can also be detrimental to the image of our country, and there could be a large nexus that could be at play over here as well. So definitely there could be a massive investigation that could be launched against Sonam Wangchuk, and it remains to be seen how will he eventually respond to all these allegations and come out clean.
Right, Anshul, thank you so much for getting us the latest on that front. Let's open this up to our panelists who join us on the right stand. Rajiv Dogra, former diplomat, is with us. Former diplomat Phuntsog is also with us as well. Brahmacharani, strategic affairs expert, is with us too. Brahmacharani, I want to begin by asking you, before I get in the diplomats and get a sense of where this is leading. But you know, these allegations that are coming to the fore of foreign funding violations and that then being imputed to the motives of what this protest really was about. What's your take on that?
I think we should not lose sight of the bigger picture, Poonam. The unrest in Ladakh has significant implications for India, impacting its security, internal political dynamics, and diplomatic standing. We should not forget that Ladakh is the nerve center of India's border tensions with China for the last 5 years and more. There has been a military standoff between India and China that has not been entirely diffused. And even the 1999 Kargil war with Pakistan was fought entirely on Ladakh territory. So this unrest that we are now seeing in Ladakh, a region that has historically been peaceful, that unrest creates a potential opening for India's adversaries to exploit. So we have to be cognizant of the dangers that this unrest poses. You have seen how the destabilization of Manipur is affecting northeastern India. And in the northern parts of India, we have seen the implications, the long-term implications of the destabilization of J&K. We are seeing potential destabilization of Punjab, another border state. The last thing India wants is the destabilization of Ladakh. So the Indian government, the federal government, needs to address the root causes of this unrest through dialogue, because there's a perception in Ladakh that the central government has gone back on its promises, particularly the pledge to grant 6th schedule status to Ladakh. So there may be these allegations about foreign funding. There may be, and also there's this partisan politics that has been injected into the situation in Ladakh. But I think it's important, very important, for the central government to deal with the situation with a very clear focus. There needs to be dialogue, because curfew cannot be an answer to the unrest. There has to be dialogue. There has to be an attempt to listen to the grievances of the local people and to try to address them in a way that protects the interests of both the Ladakhis as well as the interests of India as a whole.
But in interest of Ladakh and sticking to that, Mr. Stovdan, that's what I want to ask you about. You know, this inclusion in the 6th schedule, that being extended to Ladakh as well, the statehood demand, that's not new. We've had these demands for decades now. But why has the situation come to such a pass now? Why did we see the situation go out of control yesterday, unfortunately, because of which 4 people had to die?
You were earlier giving an interpretation that these are individually driven movements, problems, and these are matter of laws. I think the agencies are trying to find out But my point is that as a student of security, I have been alerting the government since I belong to this area that there have been proliferations of NGOs since 1981 in this border town. Something like 250 NGOs have been operating some 10 years ago, which I was studying that time. So I think everything had happened before the eyes of the government. When it was part of a J&K, the Srinagar government never bothered about it. Now, after the UT formation, this government doesn't seem to be interested in talking to anybody or consulting anyone on the Ladakh issue. They just talk to the agitators. I don't know what kind of a government is this. They just don't bother. So, all kind of people are sent here to govern this place with no experience. So that's the cumulative effect of all this is that today things have gone out of control. This could have been averted long time back. But they chose not to bother. In fact, all these activities have been encouraged to take place. Lands have been allocated to all these NGOs here and there. So it's nothing new. This was expected, and it's sad that we lost some people yesterday, some 4 to 5 people. I think more people are critical now in the hospital. So I think situation is under control now, but the government should really talk to a lot of people, not just 1 or 2 agitators. That's the problem here. And even the sympathizers of BJP and RSS and all people are disappointed today because just the government simply doesn't act. So that's a problem right now, and rest is a matter of law. I'm not willing to comment on what Mr. Wangchuk is doing or not doing. That's for the government to find out.
But you know, these stakeholders that you speak of, Mr. Stobdan, the government has been pointing to a kind of dialogue that has taken place, the kind of breakthroughs that have taken place during these recent talks as well, the kind of push that was made for employment specifically for them, the gender inclusivity, the language inclusivity push that was made by the central government. And the central government would like us to believe that things were on the right track, which seemed to have been a problem, which is why there are certain elements that are trying to disrupt that process.
Yeah, some issues have been addressed already. Issues of employment and issues of domicile laws and all these things, certain legislation through the Home Ministry. But the issue is about the 6th schedule demand, which I believe is very difficult to grant to Ladakh or statehood to Ladakh, which was just 3 lakh population. It's not viable to grant a status of a statehood to this region. Economically, it's not viable. 6th schedule is a very specific, schedule in our constitution, which is given to tribal areas of northeast. And Ladakh is not tribal area. Ladakh is a scheduled tribe area. There's a difference between scheduled tribe and scheduled area. In scheduled tribe comes under schedule 6th schedule, 5th schedule, whereas 6th schedule has, like in Bodoland, they have a specific law to protect, the ethnic tribes and other things. So I don't know how Home Ministry is trying to understand all these issues. I feel that they should be given some kind of a constitutional safeguard, maybe in the name of Buddhism or maybe in the name of Himalayan ecology. Something can be done, but I don't know. The tribal status is something very difficult. Then I think the other states will also start asking. There are many districts in Andhra Pradesh, maybe in Chhattisgarh, maybe in Himachal Pradesh would be wanting to come under the 6th schedule. So I'm sure the government has a lot of constraints on this, but some methodology has to be found out.
And until that happens, we cannot be in a position where we see this kind of unrest, Rajiv Dogra, isn't it? The dialogue takes place, those negotiations do happen. We see these kind of protests take place every now and then. The hunger strike that Mr. Wangchuk was on, this is not the first time that he's done it. It was called off yesterday, right after we saw these violent protests, but this has happened before as well. So then, how do we move forward from here?
The law and order problem will come if the administration doesn't act. There is complete.
Mr. Stobdan, I'll come back to you. Mr. Stobdan, I'll come back to you, but Rajiv Dogra, yes.
Well, I think we first have to understand what Ladakhis are like. by all accounts and by all tradition and by all of their history, they are known as a peaceful people. They are not known to indulge in violence. So protests like this do not happen one fine morning when people get out of their bed, come to the streets and start burning things. There has to be some instigation, there has to be some planning, and I think it's government's job to investigate as to whether there were some foreign elements involved. I am saying this with a lot of research on such kind of protests internationally. It is never an innocent action, with some exceptions of course. And please keep in mind the fact that Ladakh shares nearly 1500 kilometer long border with China and nearly 750 kilometer long border or line of control with Pakistan. So these two countries are not exactly friendly to Ladakh or to the larger issue of India. But having said that, I must also say that Ladakhi patriotism or nationalism should not be questioned. After all, Kargil war, the Kargil aggression by Pakistanis was first detected and reported by Ladakhi shepherd. And please also remember that it was Ladakhis who protested against the Chinese soldiers when they found that their grazing land was being encroached upon. And Ladakhi scouts have a proud tradition of bravery in Indian Army. So having said all that, let me also say from what I have learned is that over 90% of Ladakhi youth are educated, which is one of the highest education percentages in India. But 27% of them are unemployed, which is twice the national average. One of the reasons why they do find it hard to get employment is that after the bifurcation, ironically and quite naturally in some ways, they have not been able to get employment in the industrial part of J&K. So I think some means have to be discovered, dealt with and applied to address this very large angst of the young people. Otherwise, the protests will keep on happening from time to time. They have not happened in large measure previously, but they could happen now, especially if there is some foreign interest involved.
And which is why I wanted to ask you that, Mr. Dogra, you know, like you said, the patriotism of the Ladakhi people should not be questioned, and I don't think that's the intention here. But this foreign funding and questions that are being raised over that, that's something that seems to be significant, because it looks like somebody sees this as troubled waters and wanting to fish in it. Do you think that is the case? That is one way of fishing in troubled waters. Well, that is for MHA and authorities to investigate and eventually come out and inform the people of India. That will take time. But the very fact that there is foreign funding on a regular basis raises questions and raises eyebrows. So I think we need to be careful that foreign agencies, wherever they are from, should not get involved in any further in Ladakh's affairs. And that's most important and needs to be addressed as soon as possible. But there are several of these allegations, Brahmacharani, that have been made even in the past. Now, the question that one would ask of these agencies or the central government is that if the allegations have persisted for this long, then why was there an investigation or a probe that was not done, a more watertight one, in the past? Why did we wait for a situation to come to such a pass?
You raise a very good question. Under the FCRA, when an NGO is registered with the government, the flow of funding to that NGO is monitored by the Home Ministry. Each grant that goes to the NGO, the Home Ministry is able to track the source of funding and the purpose of that funding to that particular NGO. So the government in New Delhi was aware of the flow of funds to these various NGOs. The larger issue is this, that there is a trust deficit between the local population and the Union Territory administration in Leh. Now that trust deficit has been growing because New Delhi is sending administrators to Leh who first do not know about the local population. They have had no background experience. They are sent there on postings and they don't seek to establish a rapport with the local people. So the trust deficit ironically has grown since Ladakh became a union territory. Addressing that trust deficit is very important. The second thing we need to keep in mind is that there is a large presence of armed forces in Ladakh because of the tensions with China and with Pakistan. We need a cooperative local population, very, very important. Ladakh has to be politically stable. That is also crucial because without these two elements, the last thing India can afford is to allow the attention of its armed forces to be diverted to internal security challenges. It's essential, in fact critical, that this unrest is addressed at the earliest. We have seen the consequences of not addressing unrest quickly. We have seen how developments in Manipur went out of control because the government here in New Delhi was slow to address the initial unrest. And today, Manipur has become a state very difficult to manage. Ladakh, fortunately, has two things in its favor. One, traditionally, it's been a peaceful region. And two, there is no cross-border movement of militants and arms into Ladakh. This is very different from, let's say, J&K or Punjab or Manipur.
Correct.
So the situation in Ladakh can be controlled, the region can be pacified. It requires a more sympathetic, forward-looking approach to deal with the unrest. And instead of seeking to target one individual or a few individuals, the effort should be to understand what the grievances are, to what extent the central government can address those grievances, and seek to build a outreach to the local population in an effort to remove the alienation.
So solutions must be found, and I'll come to Mr. Stobdan for what that solution could look like as well. And I request all of you gentlemen to stay on with us because Sonam Wangchuk has also now reacted to this FCRA license being cancelled and the allegations of foreign funding norms being violated are being made against him and his NGO. Let's listen to what he had to say.
इस्तेमाल किया जा रहा है। अब आपकी एनजीओ की सीबीआई प्रोब भी स्टार्ट कर दी गई है। एलिगेशंस हैं कि फॉरेन फंडिंग मिली जो कि माल प्रैक्टिसेस के थ्रू आई। इस चीज को कैसे देख रहे हैं? और ठीक जिस तरीके से रिवॉल्यूशन हुआ कल, इतनी जाने गई, उसके ठीक बाद अगले दिन आपके खिलाफ सीबीआई जांच।
जी नहीं, सीबीआई जांच अभी नहीं हुई। ठीक अगले दिन एक प्रेस रिलीज देती है गृह मंत्रालय, भारत जैसे महान बड़े देश का गृह मंत्रालय प्रेस रिलीज देता है जिसमें वो कहते हैं सोनम वांगचुक 3-4 बार सोनम वांगचुक एक छोटे से इंसान पर वो पूरा दोष मढ़ते हैं। तो ये एक कड़ी का हिस्सा है, ये भी कल का वाला भी एक कड़ी का हिस्सा है। ये कोई 1.5 महीना पहले शुरू हुआ, जबकि लद्दाख के जो चुनाव हैं वो 2 महीने में आने वाले थे। ये वही चुनाव है जिसमें लोग मांग कर रहे हैं कि पिछले चुनाव का वादा पूरा कीजिए अगले में जाने से पहले। पिछले चुनाव का वादा था कि आपको 6वें शेड्यूल में लाएंगे, तो अब लोग मांग कर रहे थे इसे पूरा किए बिना हम आपको नहीं जाने देंगे। उनमें से बड़ी आवाज मेरी थी, तो मुझ पर उन्होंने निशाना साधा और 1.5 महीना पहले हमें बताया गया कि आप पर एक FIR है, वो भी देशद्रोह का है। उसके बाद हमारे विद्यालय की ज़मीन वापस ले जा रहे हैं ऐसा नोटिस आया। उसके बाद सीबीआई की इंक्वायरी, ये 2 हफ्ते पहले की बात है, सीबीआई की, फिर इनकम टैक्स के पता नहीं क्या क्या। तो सीबीआई के नोटिस में ये लिखा है कि 2022 से 24 में आपकी संस्था ने विदेशी मुद्रा ग्रहण किया जबकि आपके पास अनुमति नहीं है, FCRA नहीं है। हमने FCRA नहीं लिया क्योंकि हमारा इरादा नहीं है विदेशों से हम भीख मांगे, ठीक है। मगर 2000
लेकिन आपने पैसे तो लिए।
हाँ, अब देखिए वो क्या पैसा है। ये किसी भी यूनिवर्सिटी का सपना होगा और जो ये यूनिवर्सिटी करने में काबिल होगी उसे पुरस्कार दिया जाएगा।
Mr. Sabdan, I want to ask you this. You know, Sonam Wangchuk there says that he is being scapegoated into this because the government has to find one person to blame for what happened. Do you think that is the case here?
Well, my own personal opinion, he's my neighbor here. So I don't wish to make any comment on his what he's saying or what he's not saying.
Sure.
My only belief is that he is not an anti-national. He could be an anti-state. I don't know, depending on which regime the state is running. But all these allegations have been made earlier also. But government, I have not seen government taking all these things seriously all these years. It's not new. So I wish not to comment on what he is saying.
Sure.
But this issue can be addressed. This unrest issue can be addressed. It's not a big deal. Today, absolutely, there is no problem in Leh. As other speakers have said, that it's a peaceful region, and they are really peaceful. They are Buddhist. They don't indulge in violence. Issue is not that. The issue of employment, development, and education, all these things are not the issue here. There is no poverty in Ladakh. Not even a single person who has no household here. So the issue is more emotional. Issue is more political. Issue is more religious. Half of Ladakh look towards Iran. The Ayatollah Khomeini, that's in Kargil. Of half of Ladakh, where I belong to, we look towards Tibet. So, and I really don't know whether there's an Indian narrative here. I have not seen any Indian narrative, put forward by any government organization, barring Doordarshan telecasting some news here. So it's very interesting. No institutions to integrate this region with the rest of India emotionally, politically.
So then,
okay, building infrastructure is built by the army. So there is no effort by the government. It's been done for the adversaries in the neighborhood. But this is the danger now. It's gravitating towards the east since the last 5-6 years. I won't say China, but certainly the influence is there from the east. Whichever you may call it, China, Tibet, or Korea, Japan, I don't know.
Sure.
But there is a huge influence, and the government is also involved in this, in propagating this influence. There are a lot of color washing is happening here.
So then, Rajiv Dogra, is the solution political in the sense that should there be a political representation that comes in specifically from these regions, and would that be then the solution? Because the grouse has always been that first Jammu and Kashmir and then New Delhi both didn't understand what this region wanted.
Well, firstly, my compliments. You are asking the smart questions and intelligent questions. But to answer your latest question, clearly there is some political shortfall or mismatch which is happening. Otherwise, this won't have bubbled over. People come out in the open and come out and protest because their voices have not been heard. This is a universal phenomena and this is a universal fact. But I think for us, there should be a wake-up call because Ladakhis are peaceful, Ladakhis are patriotic, and Ladakhis are by and large affable people. They would listen to reason, whether they are from Kargil or from other parts of Ladakh. Second thing is, if there is some lacuna in administrative handling of the issue, then I think there is immediate action required by the centre. After all, it is centre-controlled region, to put the right people who can then interact with the public, listen to their grievances and try to solve them as early and as completely as possible. But to say that we have to deal with them with a rod, I think that would be a wrong approach.
And we will have to see how things go from here on, what kind of approach is taken from both sides, because consensus has to be built and a middle ground has to be found for a solution. But I have to leave it there. I thank you, gentlemen, for joining us here on this edition of The Right Stand.